Wow, I hope everybody is ready for an extremely fun episode today. Let's start with a little bit of philosophy. I feel like in any debate, we're always caught in a specific nexus: human nature versus social conditioning. What makes something natural versus normalized? Is it natural to be amoral or empathetic? Is amorality simply normalized and accepted? It's a tough question when you look back into the history and see humans, regardless of race, religion, or geographical location, continually doing the same things over and over, which is true. National tide, the idea of pack mentality forcing the state in one direction, or the great man theory, the idea that it's the will of a strong figurehead which changes the course of a nation. When unanswerable questions such as these arise, all we can do is look inside of ourselves, at our experiences and who we truly are, to find our own answer. Because regardless of race, religion, or geographical location, we are all human. Just one species. Our outsides may look different, but inside we are all the same. We feel the same feelings. And yes, while I acknowledge that is an oversimplification, and you could actually that we have psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists and others who feel all very different or not much at all, people with these conditions appear at similar levels in every society. We all have to deal with them, and thankfully they're a small minority. What I'm getting at is that the human condition is universal, whether you're American or South African, Iraqi, or Japanese. You get it. You're not dumb. What that condition is, of course, is debated, but we can't avoid it. It's everywhere we look, whether it's in cynical advertisements or expressions of art. Universality isn't just a philosophical observation, it's the reason stories travel. It's why Japanese stories can speak to Americans and why anime can reflect American political realities even when the creator may never have stepped foot on the land of freedom soil. So, a video ago, we spoke about politics and anime. It was fun. This is going to be more fun. People weighed in and gave their takes, mostly good ones on that video, considering how not based I outed myself as, but there were also some impressively demented comments, even for the internet. However, one I couldn't get over was the accusation that anime couldn't possibly be used as an example of American or frankly any other political situation because it's Japanese. Essentially saying that because it came from Japan, anime is unique and can only be understood from a Japanese perspective because, and I can only assume this is the bottom line take here, Japanese people are aliens or something? Now, obviously that's a melty brain view of literally everything. Cultures differ, you see, but the psychological, political, and historical forces that produce violence, nationalism, and genocide are universal. You don't need to be specifically Japanese or American to understand a story about oppression, displacement, or militarism. But I thought it created a good prompt for another discussion about human nature, about why, even if we're from different places, even if we speak different languages, even if our histories are branched far apart from each other, stories, music, and art always reveal how similar we really are. There's a way to communicate across borders and through barriers. It's why certain types of stories are so popular, and why others are studies as catalysts for great evils. It's why the argument of human nature versus social conditioning is so prevalent, because when you take a second to look a little deeper into art, why it was made, and what it's trying to say, you can learn that our histories really aren't that different when you break them down into pieces. So, let's talk about America and Japan, how similar they really are, and a major factor that unites them: genocide, and how Japanese artists deal with and communicate that heavy history through manga and anime. It's White Boy Weight Loss Winter, and I've been playing Beat Saber until I can't move. Thankfully, this video is sponsored by Factor. On top of trying to stay fit, it's the holidays, which means work, travel, family, and a ton of extra cooking. I'm already dead inside from Thanksgiving and Christmas and dancing until I pass out. The thought of New Year's still on the horizon is my 13th reason, or was, because thankfully I have Factor. And you can too. But seriously, when my box comes in, I know I'm in business because life is going to be that much easier that week. They save me a ton of time and keep me from blowing my money on delivery as well. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen meals that are ready in just 2 minutes, and they've doubled their menu to over 80 rotating weekly options. So you're getting 3 times more chef-crafted meals than before, and with new Mediterranean Asian dishes, plus more seafood options like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. I'm currently eating a chicken taco bowl as a little workout recharge, and it is frankly delicious. Factor has also added the option to customize meals, so if you love chicken and hate pork, you can just swap it for free. We've been working with Factor this entire year, and I love getting my box because I know meals are going to be easy that week. Like I said before, you can have that feeling too. So head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code bonsaipop.fb50 to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for an entire year. That's code bonsaipop.fb50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for a year. Go do it. Go use the code. Go to the website. Do the thing. Now we're going to get back to this very fun video. If you're sitting there like, okay, but how does that show up in anime? It's everywhere. You got whole races getting wiped out in Dragon Ball, ethnic cleansing in internment camps in Attack on Titan, religion-coded genocide in Full Metal Alchemist. Japan is not subtle about this. Look at Naruto, Dororo, Hunter x Hunter, Vinland Saga, Pluto, Gyakusatsu Kikan, Himetsu no Uokoku, Promised Neverland, Code Geass, like half the Gundam series, hell, the whole in Dorohedoro is a concentration camp. You get it. Now, the word genocide makes a lot of people squirm because it's bad. Arguably the worst thing a nation can do. One person can't do a genocide. You see, it takes a village, or a state of some kind at least. Now, most of you know what genocide is, and for those of you who came to learn, good on you. Do note though that there are people here that did not come to learn and instead showed up to embarrass themselves publicly in the comments again, so if I sound a little condescending, it's because I'm directing a lot of this crucial information at them, mostly because they're purposefully ignorant and I ain't got no tolerance for that. So a genocide, at base level, is the effort to remove an undesired population. This can be done through an impressive array of techniques tried over the centuries: starvation, disease, sterilization, mass deportation, and of course, your classic brutal eradication through mass execution. Some nations even went as far as to breed away undesirables through forced pregnancies on said undesirable populations in order to foment national sympathy and loyalty from the coming mixed race next generation. Now, if this sounds like basically the most horrible thing humans can do to other humans, congratulations, you're normal. It's bad, really bad. So naturally, when a nation commits the act of genocide, they generally don't like to admit it, because then people will like them less. And when a nation has committed genocide in the past to further their own nationalistic goals and identity, they generally like to cover it up. Because it's bad and not cool, you see. Far from fair and unbiased and based. Genocide is so bad that when it happens, there are international political obligations for countries to condemn and even in some cases intervene to end them. This is why, in many cases, blatant acts of genocide are denied by third-party governments. This is done in the courts, where despite the legal definition of genocide being pretty clear, the law is debated forever so said governments can simply ignore them. Or, and this is the fun part, continue supporting them. There is a light novel series turned anime called 86, which shows this issue in depth, where the definitely not racist and in fact least racist and most cool country called the Republic, sends all of its non-pure-blooded citizens to die in a war, but it's cool because they're actually fair, unbiased, and based. Just don't think about it. However, for us normal ethical humans with a moral compass, genocide is simple. If it looks like genocide and quacks like a genocide, you can be pretty confident it's a fucking genocide, assuming you have the correct information about what it is. So, if you trust your government, which has an agenda, or military, which has an agenda, more than the people with boots on the ground risking their lives in some cases to report on what they're actually witnessing, well, first of all, you're kind of a willing idiot. But second, you might have misinformation. For instance, you might think there's a genocide in Nigeria and not one in Gaza, and you would be very wrong and dumb. The exact opposite is true, but the fabrication I gave is the actual stance of the current American administration because it fits their agenda. So if you're grasping all of this, what I'm telling you is that there is printed video and audio proof that America is denying the systematic eradication of the Palestinian people via the Israeli government they support with our tax dollars, while fabricating the systematic eradication of white Christians in Nigeria. That's kind of fucked up, but unfortunately it's nothing new. But what does this have to do with Japan and anime, you might be asking? Well, I'm glad you asked. I have a story for you. A true story. Once upon a time, there was a land in which people lived, not united as a monolith, but nonetheless, the land was theirs and was where they had existed for as long as history was recorded. One day, foreigners arrived on the shores of the people's land. They spoke another language and had strange customs. But preferring peace, the people tentatively worked with the foreigners in coexistence. The foreigners had interesting technology and brought new techniques to the people, and the people knew the land. It was a mutually beneficial deal. However, the foreigners had other ideas. You see, the people had an endless supply of resources the foreigners could use. The people preferred to live in harmony with their land, never taking more than they needed. They loved their land, worshipped it and its creatures for keeping them alive, with its bounty and its beauty. But the foreigners didn't care about this land. It was raw, untouched, and ripe for exploitation. The worship the people had for it was heretical to the foreigners and their foreign gods. The people's lifestyle was considered base and barbaric, their language ugly, their customs disgusting, and their peaceful ways foolish and naive. They were wide open. So the foreigners pushed farther into the people's land. They invited more foreigners from where they came from. They violated treaties, exploited natural resources, hunted the native animals to near extinction. So, backed into a corner, the people had no option other than to fight. Their food was in short supply, their space was shrinking, their homes were being destroyed. So they did, and they were punished. Their villages were raided, their women and babies were murdered. These acts were considered justified by the foreigners because they saw the people as animals, not as other humans. And eventually, the people lost completely. They were overrun, everything they knew was desecrated. Those who didn't perish in systematic eradication were sequestered to the worst parts of the land that was once open and free and theirs. Land that was once a patchwork of the people's different tribes, nations, and cultures. They were homogenized into a new nation run by the foreigners, and the people were left to quietly disappear. Wow, good story. Pop quiz. Which country did the foreigners make? Was it the United States, Japan, Israel? Correct. Kinda seems like this happened a lot. Oh, and the people, that could be Native American tribes, the Palestinians, or the Ainu. Doesn't matter, same story. Happy holidays, by the way. Golden Kamuy is an anime and manga literally about Japan doing that exact story to the Ainu, stealing land, rewriting their history, packaging their culture as a novelty while quietly trying to erase it.
Hey! What business does a mangy Ainu brat have hanging around in front of my shop?
Nausicaa and Princess Mononoke, both by Ghibli, both run that same story with different coats of paint. Some industrial jackass rolls in, calls the locals primitive, and suddenly the whole forest, gods, and people are acceptable collateral damage. It's the same template, different finish. Feels bad. Should feel bad. That's the lesson. It's bad. Always. Seems like we shouldn't let that happen then. Now, assuming you aren't living in some kind of Christian fundamentalist cult.
As we continue through this video, realize that just about every other smaller conspiracy theory that I lay out here pretty much comes down to the idea of the grand conspiracy that everything in the world is ultimately dominated and controlled by demon-possessed, satanic communists.
You probably knew this, but you didn't always, did you? You were probably told about how well we got along with the native people and how one day we just made America. Or maybe the subject was mostly ignored. It really depends, seeing as there's no federal curriculum mandate to learn anything about this history. The former is called propaganda. Information designed by the state to make you feel good about how based and moral your country is. So you don't, I don't know, get really pissed off about how fucked up it actually is. Oh, and the latter is denial by omission. That plays its part too. But let's not pretend this only happened in 3 places. Any country that had any colonial ambitions did this at one point or another, or still is. Israel? Look at Portugal's history in Rwanda and Southern Africa, or, well, any other nation that's tried to take African territory ever. My point is, if you hear this and don't feel disgust, there's probably something deeply wrong with you. You see, there's another part of this story that's the most difficult because it's your part. None of what happened in the past is your fault. Do you benefit from it now? Most likely, but that's also not your fault. However, if you're an adult in a democracy, correcting these things has now become your responsibility, and that's a heavy burden. It's unfair, but less unfair than being genocided. I think we can agree on that. But remember, it's not all your responsibility. You can't do everything, not even close, but you can do something. Whatever it is, it's something. We all have limits, our own burdens, max caps that can't be changed. For some, simply not denying the past or the present and staying educated is the best they can do, and that's fine. It takes a nation to commit genocide, right? It takes a nation to correct the past and safeguard the future too. And for some of us, the revelation that we exist on stolen land taken by force, that our economy was built on the backs of slaves, that our women were forced into subjugation, that genocidal nation states are funded in our name with our tax dollars, and we've committed countless atrocities on immigrants, minorities, and mentally ill, and basically every other vulnerable group, puts a piss in our veins that can't be diluted without justice. So we pick a lane and do what we can. For me, right now, it's this, what you're watching. But for some, it's anime. We got here. See, my videos aren't for everybody. I like to use big words, but what everybody can enjoy is stories. They're compelling things, like the story I told you earlier. Notice how you could have slotted like an endless amount of nations into either side of that conflict? Interesting. It's almost like when you're talking about something universal, it can be understood universally. Like there's an underlying human experience that unites the majority of people. It's called empathy. It's a good thing. That pain in your gut you feel when you see a screaming mother and child bloodied up in a collapsed building is good. It's your humanity letting you know that what you're seeing is wrong and bad, and a primal acknowledgement that you wouldn't do that to another person. Ever. See, some of us take it a step further and realize that currently our tax money is funding continual breakages in the ceasefire in Gaza, resulting in the deaths of innocent people every day, as well as strikes in Lebanon, which are killing innocent people, and our money is also going to ICE, an American state Gestapo force rounding up innocent people, separating them from their children and families, and putting them into concentration camps on our land in our country, and it pisses us off real bad. It also pisses me off when the news paints all of these other nations like they're psychotic, evil, third world organizations when they're just doing the same things we do. And I imagine when young Japanese kids look a little further into their own history, they feel the same way. Japan has a long history, and for hundreds of years of that history, the nation was ruled by military dictators and functioned under a rigid class system where the majority, the peasants, were at the bottom, working to enrich the top. It's like a scheme in the shape of a pyramid. Wow. Kind of like the US now that I think about it, but meanwhile, these guys had to eat a diet of mostly millet, which is gross. Look it up. There were a lot of wars during that time in which the peasants suffered immensely. Eventually there was peace, but they were still under the rule of said military dictators. This only ended when America, yes, America, showed up and forced Japan to open its borders when they were not ready to do so by scaring the piss out of them with big ships and guns they'd never seen before and then humiliating them on top of it. So, the Japanese killed a lot of Christians, which is a genocide, and then they killed even more of each other, which was a civil war, and proceeded to become a military and economic powerhouse. What do they do with this power? Invaded Korea, and then Manchuria, a northern province of China. They helped the Allies in World War I for some clout, but found only more humiliation and racism when they weren't treated like people. Meanwhile, at home, they couldn't keep their officials from being assassinated, and eventually, the military kind of just took over completely, using their emperor as a useful idiot. So, what did this new, modern superpower military do? Genocide, and also became best friends with Hitler, who was also doing a genocide, little thing called the Holocaust. You may have heard of it, but you may not have heard of the Japanese genocide committed on the Chinese. It was bad. real bad, like Holocaust bad, or worse. The estimates of Chinese victims under the Japanese range from 3 to 10 million citizens lined up, shot, cut up with swords, lit on fire, dumped into mass graves, and those were the lucky ones. The unlucky ones went to Unit 737 or 731, a secret research facility for human experimentation. Imagine the worst thing imaginable, then multiply it by 5. Look it up. All of this doesn't even take into consideration what they did to the Koreans or the Filipinos, but just like America, their students aren't explicitly taught this info, thanks to an American practice of privatization. Basically, instead of standardized government textbooks agreed on by the people and paid for with taxes, companies were allowed to make deals with the schools to purchase their textbooks. So many Japanese history books gloss over the dirty stuff because it looks really bad and might make kids ask uncomfortable questions. So just like in America, you have to dig a little to find out the truth. And just like Americans, the Japanese probably get upset. They probably feel like they were lied to or directly and purposefully manipulated. So some of them let it out. Tell me why a young farm girl from Hokkaido, Japan's northernmost territory, would grow up to write a world-renowned comic book that story is intrinsically linked to an act of genocide. It seems random, but Hiromu Arakawa sensei educated herself. Like me, she lived on a land that was stolen from the largely peaceful indigenous people, the Ainu, through violence, subjugation, and hate. When she found out, she knew it was bad, so she used that bad feeling she had to write a story where it's explicitly shown how terrible genocide is and how cynically it comes about. But she didn't just use her local tribes as inspiration, she looked around the world, educated herself, and landed on a Middle Eastern reference, one brought about by America's actions in Afghanistan and the Middle East at large. I used her manga Full Metal Alchemist, may have heard of it, in the last video, which hurt some people's fifis, whether it was the Nazi sympathizers who denied the genocide in Palestine or the fake leftist spoilers who think it's wrong to conflate a stand-in literary device with real people. Don't worry, they're all deeply stupid and part of the problem, but the point is, that was Arakawa sensei's intention, to call attention to these crimes against humanity, make people think it was her way of fighting, it was her lane. Many others paved that lane, and many more ride in it today and will travel it in the future. See, it doesn't matter who a genocide is being done to. The point is that it happens all too often. There's currently over 7 genocides being committed right now, and those are just the ones largely agreed on. But see, I don't do a genocide, and you don't do a genocide. Nations do a genocide, and no nation is a monolith, meaning, for instance, that Israel is not a Jew, nor are Jews Israel. You can be Jewish, you can be Israeli. You can be Jewish Israeli, and you can be anything Jewish or anything Israeli. Israel, you see, represents no one single group. It's a state. Its actions are state actions, and illegal. But still, you get my point if you still have the majority of your brain cells. You cannot simply categorize a nation as a single people or a people as a nation. It just doesn't work that way. Anime hammers this idea constantly. In Code Geass, half the cast are Britannian citizens who absolutely hate what Britannia is doing. Gundam is in part built on the archetype of guy who realizes their country is the bad guy. Even in Full Metal Alchemist, most of the soldiers who carried out the Ishvalan genocide are just regular guys who realize way too late that following orders means wiping a people off of the map. Being born under a flag doesn't mean you co-sign what's done in its name. If you don't pay your taxes, you go to jail. I think that kind of makes us hostages. Regardless of that dark thought that popped in my head, I am firmly American. My family has been here a long time, but my nation does not reflect me. I'm considered an extremist, an enemy to the regime. Am I worth their time? No, but that's not the point. Let's take another example, and again, I want to go back to Dragon Ball Z and Frieza because it's simple, and most people have watched Dragon Ball Z, and therefore should probably be able to understand this. See, Frieza did genocide, one specifically outlined in the story. He used his empirical might and authority to eradicate the Saiyan race. Why? Because he deemed them dangerous. It was a preemptive strike to wipe out the possibility of a mythical being called a Super Saiyan from appearing. Even though the Saiyans were already his subjects, his tools, the mere chance of them becoming powerful scared him enough to entirely eradicate them. Genocide. Naruto has the Uchiha massacre where the village literally greenlights wiping out an entire clan in their sleep because they might rebel someday. Alright, they're probably gonna rebel. Trigun has Knives who wants to genocide humanity humanity because he's decided that we're a failed inferior species. Different power systems, same core idea. Some asshole with authority or power looks at a whole group of people and decides to delete them. Generally because it's just the most simple, easy way for them to, do a thing. Akira Toriyama himself, was not a political guy. He did base Frieza off a landlord, which is a lot if you dive into that. But the point is that regardless of his ideologies, he was able to implement genocide in his story to great effect. The act is an existential terror, erasure, destruction, culture, bloodlines, history, simply gone forever, forgotten. One of the beautiful things about being human is that even when we die, even when our lights turn out forever, we won't necessarily be forgotten. We don't necessarily disappear, unless your entire culture and history is eradicated off the face of the planet. So I guess we could talk about the giant elephant in the room. Attack on Titan. Ugh. What a bee's nest. I don't know. Kind of deserves its own dedicated video between it being kind of fashy and, You know what? Let's not for now. Let's not. Instead, let's try to go full circle. That's always fun. As an anime fan, you probably understand that there's an anime out there for everyone, right? It's a medium that is endlessly wide. And you've probably used that understanding to try and get that one friend into anime, and it just didn't work, did it? Which frustrated you. See, this person just hates anime, they say, even though they've never watched any. And that's annoying. But why is it annoying? Are you insulted? Probably not. Is it a logical take? No. That's why it's annoying. It's because they're ignorant, and they're being ignorant on purpose. They went into the anime that you so carefully picked out for them with a bigoted stance. They were never going to like it. They just watched it so you'd shut the fuck up and they could prove to you that they hate all anime, because for whatever reason anime is beneath them, or immoral, or whatever they were told. And people are like that with the Hamas attack on October 7th. Hamas did a big bad, but that's all they know. Therefore, no matter what, anything Israel does from that point on is justified. History, who cares? Reality, who cares? Nuance, what's that? So is this a universal aspect of human nature? Accepting genocide, committing genocide, being ignorant, deliberately blind? Well, I have a theory. A game. Obviously, we're all susceptible to groupthink. I live in Massachusetts in a famously liberal area. I was brought up to be okay with people being different, to basically not even care about it because, ain't my fucking business, dude. Which doesn't actually work. Like, when I got older, I learned that you have to care about differences between you and other people and work with them accordingly. You gotta create a mutual understanding. We're not all coming from the same place with the same background, but people brought up in other places were taught very differently from me. But for the massive majority, we're born, grow old, and die without ever committing a violent crime, let alone directly murdering somebody. 1% of the population accounts for 63% of violent crime, according to the National Library of Medicine. And that's not just in America, that's a universal thing. So if the vast majority of people are peaceful, how does something like genocide happen? And why does it happen so often? Well, maybe it's not the people in general, it's the people who govern in general. You see, in order to get power, you first have to want it. Then you gotta fight for it. Then you gotta grab it. It's a lot of work. You gotta really, really want that power. Naturally, this pursuit of power attracts certain types of people with certain personality traits. There have been a veritable buttload of studies done on this, from the National Institute of Health to scholarly papers and studies by psychological experts. And while there's no confirmed statistics, it's largely agreed on that a minimum of 4% of leaders have one, all, or a combo of what's known as the dark triad. That is narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. Vocab word of the day. So they scraped and clawed and fought for all this power, removed the people that had the power before them, did what it took. But why? Why would anybody go through all of that? What even starts you on that journey? Well, you have to think that you deserve it, because you're the best person to wield that power. That's called narcissism, an inflated ego, arrogance, a need for approval, which is all used to mask a deep sense of insecurity. It's a stereotype, like that short, angry guy. Now the plotting, planning, scheming, and exploitation of everyone and everything in their way on their path forward, that's Machiavellianism, the prioritization of self, status, and power above everything else. And the glue that holds all of this together, the ability to do everything without sucking the barrel of a gun like it's the tastiest lollipop you ever had, the little cherry on top, is psychopathy, marked by impulsiveness and a complete lack of empathy and remorse. No regrets, am I right, bro? This probably sounds like every major anime villain ever. I wonder why. But you see, people like this don't stop when they get all the power. They just turn all of their personality disorders on us, the people. That deep sense of insecurity requires a perpetrator to punish. Use that amoral manipulation and scheming on the public to make them fear that enemy of choice, hate them, blame them for all their problems, make it their moral obligation to hate, to otherize in the name of God, of patriotism, make them fear for their children's safety. It's not the leader you see that's making you scared and miserable with state-sponsored media, it's Group X. It's not the leader who's taking away your money and your homes and your food and your safety and your fucking dignity. It's Group X. But what if people don't buy all the propaganda? What if they're too smart? Well, then they attack the education, get them at their roots, make them stupid from the day they were born, right? And then they're just gonna swallow everything you feed them. They're just gonna believe in it. You know, you're the God King, right? And Group X, they're the evil, the sinners, the people who are destroying everything that you loved and cared about in your history and your culture and blah, blah, blah. They're doing a secret genocide to you see. You must understand, look around, hundreds of thousands of people are dying every day, can't you tell? And what do you get from all of that? Genocide. And how can a leader possibly do this? How could anyone do this? Complete lack of empathy and remorse. Psychopathy. Recognize these signs, signals, and tactics. Fight it. If you're an anime fan, you've been primed from a young age to rebel against this kind of manipulation, to fight for good, for the people who can't fight for themselves, to see that a few bad actors don't represent a population or a religion or a sexuality or anything at all. These stories are entertainment, yes, but they also instill a message about morality, because there is morality at stake in every struggle. But hey, that's just my take. Hope you enjoyed this very fun episode. Maybe, if you think it's important for voices in this space and many more spaces to be speaking about these things, share it. Share it with your family. Make your own video. I said earlier that we should all do something, no matter how small. So do what you can, when you can, and take pride in it. And with all of this said, we are going to see you next year with a brand new and very fresh Bonsai Pop. We're going to have a schedule. We have a plan. New channels. All sorts of stuff is happening. So get excited for that. Happy holidays. Hope this comes up at your dinner table. Bye, everybody.